to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee Allen, the host of this podcast. Do you ever talk too fast and you trip over your words? That's what I'm doing right now. But I'm excited to be here today. I am going to talk to you kind of about prioritizing, or why that is hard for women with ADHD. More importantly, why doing prep work, kind of behind the scenes work, is really valuable because it makes it so you don't have to worry about the priority. If you have a hard time determining the priority, if that gets in the way of you working on something because you either have too much to do or you can't figure out what to do next. So one thing I love is, and this is from long ago, I mentioned it a long time ago, is in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I think came out in the late 80s. I know I lived in Pasadena at the time. I moved there in 1990. Maybe it came out before then. It could have. But Pasadena, California, if you know the Rose Parade and all that. But I read that book, and one thing that really hit me, I think because it works with my brain, it was so good with working with my brain, is learning about how to do things that are important but not urgent. Because even though I have done well in the past with someone's coming over, they're going to be here in an hour, 2 hours, or they're going to be here this afternoon, and I run around and clean like a maniac because I know they're coming and trying to get things ready. Seems like the older I get, or the more my ADHD progresses, the less helpful that is. Prep work does better for me than even the under pressure deadline, because sometimes deadlines are happening and I get frozen, and I have to think of ways to get myself to get up and get things done. And I have to come up with a lot of other tools besides, oh, you have this coming up and you should work on this. So the idea is that if you want to make progress, if you want to reach a goal, if you want to have your morning go smoothly, your goal could be just to have your day go smoothly instead of to accomplish some big task or some big project, or you need to move, you need to figure out how to do all that goes into getting boxes, packing up, hiring movers, whatever it is you do to move. All these things that you have to do in life take some sort of skill to get yourself going on it, to have an idea of what you need to do. And that could even just be your daily tasks. And if you feel scrambled or frozen or not sure what to work on first, or kind of run from this to that, it can be really hard because you want to be able to act. But if you're acting on one thing and then you think, well, I really should be working on this, well, I really should be working on that. So a lot of people make to-do lists, and they think of what's the priority. And I didn't know about this until I was looking to review the 4 quadrants that Stephen R. Covey had in his book, that there's another matrix called the Eisenhower matrix. I also thought it was called the Einstein matrix. Okay, is it called both? I have to look this up. And I know every time I touch the microphone, it makes a lot of noise. So I'm going to try to be really quiet. Yeah, I think there's Einstein also. Eisenhower matrix, Einstein matrix. I don't know why they call them both. Eisenhower, I guess, is task management tool, but I think they're the same thing. So it's a way to identify, I think that they're similar things. It's a way to identify what's the most important thing so I can get things done. And if you're like me, you see, you look up, you Google something like priority, organization, whatever it is that you want to do. And you look it up and you think, oh, good, they're going to have all the answers. I say this with such excitement because it just doesn't always feel like that happens. You don't always get all the answers, right? And then you go to this article and you see 6 or 7 things or 8 things, and you think, tried that, that doesn't work for me, that doesn't work. Yeah, like tell me something new, tell me something, and you want it to work for you. And you think, well, obviously this is valuable to somebody. This person wrote a book about it. They make a lot of money. They make TED Talks. It must be helpful to somebody. Why isn't it helpful to me? Well, there's a reason. Your brain might be different, or what works for one person going in a certain order or following a pattern might really work. But for you, you might need to just find skills or little systems or little methods. You find what works for you and you find ways to do those in your life again and again and again, or in creative ways. And if you are just learning about your ADHD and you're discovering, well, I've done really well at this when I've done that. That right there is a skill that you've developed that worked with your brain, and tweaking it for other instances can be really helpful instead of fighting against it, because sometimes we think we have to do it in a way that worked for somebody else and then it doesn't. So my problem with the Einstein matrix or the Eisenhower matrix, I'm going to call it the Einstein matrix because I don't know very much about Eisenhower. I was little. I think I was alive if he was president. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to government when I was younger, but that matrix, the one that's not the Stephen R. Covey, has you put things into similar quadrants, like Stephen R. Covey, but with a different reason. And so it has you put in the urgent. So if you make a Foursquare, did you ever play Foursquare when you were little, and each person stands in a square and you hit the ball back and forth? So you make 4 squares. And there's the column on the left that says urgent. There's a column on the right that says not urgent. And then if you were to make the rows on the left, like you were making a Google sheet or something like that, it would say important on the first row and not important on the second row. So first quadrant, urgent and important. Second quadrant, if you're moving to the right, if you read left to right like we do in the U.S. When I went to Israel a couple of years ago, they go from right to left. I'm sure other countries, other languages do too. But it was so weird getting on a plane and seeing people read a book from the back to the front. Anyway, at least our back front. Just like if you're in the U.S. and then you see people in a movie in England driving and you're thinking they're driving on the wrong side of the car. How's that? Anyway. So urgent and important is square number 1 at the top, square number 2 on the right, urgent, not important. Wait, I'm already messing it up. Okay, let's start again. Urgent and important at the top, not urgent and important at the top. So both of the important things are at the top. And that's good because we want to see the important things at the top, right? So urgent is on the left side, not urgent on the right side. Both of those are important. On the bottom, you have things that are not important, but you might have some that are urgent. They're not important. Maybe they're not as vital to get done. So if you're in a company, maybe it's not as vital for the company to succeed, but it's still something that maybe should be done, like going through emails just to kind of clean it out. But it's not really important. It's not urgent. Not urgent, not important is just total distractions. I guess even junk mail is a distraction, right? But maybe it's important to get rid of that. But anyway, so you have to decide, do I delegate something that needs to be done, but it's not super important? Like it kind of has a timeline because the trash will pile up or whatever, but it's not our most important thing of the day. It could wait till tomorrow. And then there's the things that could wait forever. Like someone says, hey, come in and watch this TikTok. And you're like, I don't really even need to do that. Like that's not important at all, but it might be something we do, right? So in the business world, when they use this quadrant, these 4 quadrants, they say, look at your to-do list and see what is the priority. Those would be the things that are urgent and important. Do those. Do those things that are urgent and important. And those urgent things, there's a deadline. And probably with a big company, there's a deadline. We need to get that done, that kind of thing, right? But not urgent, still important. There's no deadline. It could wait. So maybe that's something that you put on your schedule for the next day, or you try to do before it becomes, like critical, but you don't have to do it now. So that would be further down the to-do list. And if you have time, you'll do that later. So I can see how that could be helpful with management and with running an office or things like that, and deciding, Do I need to do it? Is it a priority? Do I need to schedule it out? That would be not urgent, but still important to do. Make this phone call or something. Is this something that needs to get done, but it's not as important, so I don't need to do it, but maybe I could delegate it, or maybe I can get someone else to do it. I can pay someone else to do it or ask somebody else to do it or something. And then just get rid of that even thought that this needs to be done. Is the not urgent, not important, don't waste your time. And that can be helpful. But I think when I have ADHD, I can write out my to-do list and I can say, okay, what are the most urgent and important things? If I work on that first, that I might have 5 of those things, honestly, and I can't decide which one to do. It's hard for me to set that priority. Or the most important thing to do or the most urgent thing to do is so big that I don't have the confidence that I can get it done. Or if I do get it done, can I get it done in the time that it needs to be done? It might just put me in more of a frenzied state. And then I'm not as capable of getting it done. So I look at these steps for things like that. And I think, yeah, I could delegate that, but maybe I'd enjoy doing that more, even if it's not as important. Maybe my brain needs to do the things that aren't as important. And so I look at the quadrant differently because I'm not working for somebody. I am setting my own priorities. I do have responsibilities as a mom with older children, but not in the same way as I did when I was younger. Like an urgent and important thing might have been a diaper that needs to be changed, a crying baby, children that need to be picked up from school, that kind of thing. It was easier to set those priorities. But if you have a hard time figuring out the priorities, or you find these urgent, important things are so big that you just think, I can't even get that done, or you want to do it in such a great way that you may not remember all the things that are involved in getting it done, especially if you're heading out the door, you're trying to get something done. It can just make it so you're not as effective. The thing that I love about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is you need to be effective. It's not like, can you be the most successful? The idea, I think, for the people who bought the book, because it was a very successful book in the business world, was that you could be successful using it. But if I want to be effective with the brain that I have, if I'm going around trying to meet deadlines and doing the most important things and making to-do lists, that's going to make me crazy. That's going to make me just think. Honestly, when I make to-do lists, I kind of rebel against them, I think, but I don't want to do that. I don't know. The urgent and important don't always call out to me. Sometimes they have to, but they don't always call out to me. So even on Thanksgiving Day, I had a hard time going in and starting that turkey when I didn't feel like doing it. So with the Stephen R. Covey model, same thing. Urgent, not urgent at the top, but important and important at the top. Urgent, not urgent at the bottom, but both of the bottoms are not important. And he looked at things like urgent things are things that have a deadline. So you know when that's due. You know, like, okay, that needs to be done by this time. Or it's a problem, like there's a leak in your ceiling, and that's an urgent thing. We've had that. We've had too many leaks in this house. Let's just say that we've only lived here for 2 years. And every once in a while, my husband says, there's water coming through the ceiling in the kitchen. One time it was even coming through the light fixture. That's urgent. That's scary. So that's more of a crisis mode. It's a pressing problem. Those are important and they're urgent. And sometimes you do have to drop what you're doing and take care of those things. Children that, run out the door and you need to go chase them. Those are things that I don't have a problem figuring out that priority. But there are a lot of things that fall into these are the most important things that I would put at the top of my to-do list. And I still don't feel the need or the love of working on that. And I have a hard time getting myself to do it. The not urgent but important, I've learned that that's a really fun quadrant to be in. Those are things like planning. Planning's really fun. You still have to do, but planning things out can be more fun. But planning isn't just imagining. It's not just dreaming. It's not just writing things down. It's not just talking to people and figuring out how you're going to do it. It can actually be the prep work. And that's what can be really fun to do, because prep work, a lot of times is mindless work. So if you think of getting ready to go to the gym, if you're going to go to the gym, that's something that's important, and it actually has a timeline. Let's say you know that at 7 in the morning you need to go to the gym, and you need to leave by 6:30 so you can get there and get to work in time, or get back and take your kids to school, or whatever it is. So that has some sort of a deadline. It's not super pressing. It's not like you're going to get in trouble or lose money or something if you don't do it. But that's a goal, and that has a priority in your mind of being important to you and having a timeline with it. But there are a lot of things that you can do to make it easier to do that, so it's not such a big thing on the to-do list that you can't just walk by and go, yep, we're doing that. You don't have to scramble around doing all the last minute things to make sure that happens. So the prep work could be figuring out, what shoes am I going to wear? Do I have socks? Is the laundry caught up? Do I even know where socks are? I went to a yoga full moon retreat mini class. I guess it was a mini retreat class, cacao ceremony. Cacao, like you make the chocolate into a really thick, bitter hot chocolate. It was good. I wished it was a little bit hotter. But anyway, and I also wished it was dark, because it wasn't dark. Have I already talked about that this week? Sometimes I get hung up on things when they don't meet my expectations. I was hoping it was going to be dark and we were going to be doing yoga under the full moon, and it wasn't dark, but I guess it was full moon time. So yeah, I tend to hash and rehash in my mind. Do you do that too? So anyway, but when you're prepping for this, I did a little prep work before that. I knew that I wanted to be comfortable there. I'm a high maintenance girl when it comes to camping. I mean, not high maintenance, like tons of makeup, that kind of high maintenance, but I want to be comfortable. I want to be warm. I want to have a pillow that I like. I'll bring all the extra things to prevent myself from having shoes that aren't comfortable or whatever. So I, not only for myself, but for the friend that invited me, I got out yoga bolsters, blankets, eye pillows, socks. I didn't know, like, should I wear shoes that require socks or not? Either way, I'm going to have socks to put on while I lay down on the yoga mat. I'm going to have a water bottle. I'll have a hydration drink. Like, I have all this stuff because I want to feel good afterwards. I don't want to feel drained. I want to feel good throughout. I don't want to feel thirsty, but yet I don't want to have to go to the bathroom doing all these things. I wouldn't say it overplan. I plan adequately for them. But sometimes I am late to going things like that if I don't do the prep work. So during the prep work, I got the mats out. I got all the things out that I needed beforehand. But if I'd really done the prep work, I would have been caught up on laundry, and I wasn't. So I had to go through multiple baskets of laundry trying to find 2 socks that matched. And I almost grabbed 2 that didn't. I thought no one's going to care, but I thought, no, I'd find some that matched. So I found some that matched. When I got there at the end, we're supposed to go around the circle and say, like, what we liked and stuff like that. And I told this one woman I really liked that her socks didn't match, because that made me happy, because as I thought, she's my kind of person. I should have done that. I should have felt that comfortable to not wear socks that match. But anyway, whatever it is that you're going to do, if you get the prep work done, it could even be for cooking. Let's say you want to make cookies, but when it's time to make cookies, you think, well, I don't even know if I have all the ingredients. Or I don't like making cookies when the butter is hard. I like it to be soft. So if you think that morning or even the night before, I want to make cookies tomorrow, go into your pantry and see, do I have the right sugar for that? Do I have the butter? Maybe I'll take the butter and put it out on the counter now. All of those things that are kind of the planning things, the little prep work, they're fun and easy when it's not time to do it, because it's like whatever time frame that you have in your mind of something that needs to be done, it is not there during the prep work time. Prep work time is like the free time. It's like, I get to just help with this, and I just get to help with that. At least that's how I feel. And I think that's a really fun time to just do it, because you know it's going to make your life easier later. There's no heart beating a little bit faster, like I need to get this done, or, oh no, what if I don't have enough butter? Because you don't care if you have enough butter. If you find out that you don't, you go, oh, maybe I'll order some to be delivered tomorrow morning, or maybe I'll get in the car and go, or ask my husband if he can pick some up. You just have all the solutions because you have a lot of time when you're in that important, but not urgent. Not urgent is a great way to act under. What's the word for acting under? Yeah, I don't know. Isn't it weird when you can't think of normal words like exist? It's not exist, but anyway. So yeah, have you ever watched like the Great British Baking Company? I never know what those shows are called. They have all these. Okay, Great British Cooking Show. Oh, Baking Show. At least I remembered it was British. It wasn't English. Great British Baking Show. I used to watch that when, is his name Scott? What was his name? Scott? I thought he was really fascinating to watch. Maybe I just thought his name was Scott because my husband's name's Scott. But I liked the original judges, and I kind of stopped watching it after that. But it was a little bit stressful when they were saying 3 minutes to the people baking, because these people love to bake. They tell their stories about how I live in this little flat and I love to cook for my daughter and all this stuff. And then they get there and they're making them do really hard things, and they have to put it in the proofing oven. And I learned what a proofing oven was. And they put a lot of stress on them, because then they're like, oh no, it didn't whip up. The souffle didn't whip up like I wanted it to. And then they start getting panic mode, and then they give them the deadline, and it's super stressful. And we can feel like that in our own lives. We can feel like when there's some kind of weight while we're trying to just process thoughts, get things done, be in a mode of accomplishing things, we don't want to always be in a mode of having to think and have pressure. We want to have a mode of, this is fun, and what should I do next? And when you're in that freedom mode of, I think I'll do this now. I have a little time. Yeah, I can watch a show, and I am one who loves to watch TV shows. I have all the DVDs in the world to prove it, from not only like Disney and Harry Potter and everything that everyone else used to buy DVDs for, but every little sitcom I used to watch when I was little. I love to watch shows over and over. I don't have a problem watching TV and relaxing that way. But I do find pockets of time where I think, before I do that, or while I do that on my laptop, I can always watch something on my laptop and do this to prep for that. Maybe just make the cookie dough and then stick it in the fridge and then bake them tomorrow. I like doing that too, because then I can just take it out. It is a little hard. It's nicer if you make them into balls first, but that takes more time. So doing things like that. I love to make bread. And yesterday I was thinking, you need to just get out the wheat grinder. Have you ever ground wheat? I love to grind wheat. My mom used to do it. I love the smell of it. I love to cook with whole wheat. But when I run out of wheat flour, I have to grind the wheat again. And when it's time to make bread, I don't want to grind the wheat at the same time. That's too much. It's hitting my brain of, that's too much. I'm not doing it. So I want to have the flow of the flours ready. But if it's just the afternoon and I'm thinking, I just cleaned the kitchen, I think I'll go in there and work on my website or something, I'll think, why don't you grind some wheat first? Oh, that sounds fun, because I don't have any pressure of, and then I'm going to make bread, and then I'm going to make a big mess in the kitchen. And then, it builds up bigger when it's part of the big process. But when it's a non-urgent but important thing, it's more fun. Setting out your clothes the night before, deciding what jewelry you're going to wear, if you wear jewelry. I like to do that stuff in advance, because if it's the morning of, my brain's not functioning as well, I can't find what I'm looking for, even though I know it's where I put it when it's time. Yeah, it can be a lot, so even just checking the weather for the next day. If you're going to go somewhere that requires outdoor, knowing if you're wearing a jacket, if you like being comfortable outside, knowing if you want to eat outside or inside, if you're going to a restaurant, all those kinds of decisions. If you don't want to make them on the spot, if you want to lighten your load, even just decision-wise, do that prep work the day before. Do it the night before. Do it while you're watching a show. Do it while Do it while you're waiting in line in the store on your phone. There are a lot of ways to do the prep work. Yes, yes, yes. So let's see what else I have. Do I have anything else in store? So yeah, the not important but urgent. Those are the things that aren't as fun, like phone calls. Sometimes you get phone calls or interruptions, and they're not important, but you have to pay attention to them because they're happening. That happens in life. Those aren't the places that we enjoy spending time as much as the important and non-urgent. Non-urgent feels good unless you work well under pressure. Maybe even those who do, I would think at some point get tired of the pressure. So yeah. Anyway, okay. So with ADHD, it's important to just know what works for you. And anything that you can do in advance. I think of it like if you had a personal assistant in the days of the Brady Bunch, they used to say, like everybody needs an Alice because Alice was the housekeeper. And when I watched the Brady Bunch, and the Brady Bunch is my favorite show ever. It might be why I have 3 girls and 3 boys, but I didn't know anybody in the world, in the real world, who had an Alice, who had a housekeeper, not in my town. And that looked amazing. Carol Brady got to have Alice bring in the groceries, or the grocery delivery boy bring her, Sam the butcher bring the meat. but Alice did a lot. She even helped with the kids. And I didn't have an Alice with my kids either, and that was okay. But as I get older, I think, wouldn't it be nice to have a personal assistant? Wouldn't it be nice to have an assistant who would do my taxes? I know some people pay someone to do their taxes, but even if you do that, you have to do the groundwork. Wouldn't it be nice to have the personal assistant to do that groundwork for you, to make sure that every time you spent $1, they knew where it went and they made sure that it wasn't too much? And that'd be nice. Anything that causes you pressure, wouldn't it be nice if you had an assistant to take care of it? So I look at the times when I am doing the prep work is I'm being the personal assistant. I am lightening my load for later. I am doing myself a favor. I am helping myself feel less scrambled when I go into the next day, because sometimes we see the next day or the time that when something needs to be done as playing out in this beautiful way of ease. And the reality is there are those disruptions, or there are phone calls or texts or whatever news that comes into your life that makes it harder for you to be in an emotional state to do things as well. So if you have your own personal assistant yourself who said, I'm going to set you up for success. I'm going to make it easier for you tomorrow. I'm going to make it easier for you tonight. I'm going to make it easier. People who meal prep know that. They think, I'm going to make my meals and I'm just going to pull them out of the fridge and put them in the oven or whatever. I had a friend who dropped her daughters off for school every morning. I can guarantee you she doesn't have ADHD. She has the opposite. She has extra organized. Yeah, she's really, really good at all this stuff. Anyway, she would drop her kids off for school, and she would think in the morning, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? And on the way home from the school, she would stop at the store if there were any ingredients that she didn't have and pick them up and make sure she had them. When she got the mail, she was so good. She was the first person in the world that I ever heard the phrase, and this was before internet and everything, everything has a home, everything has a place, and everything in its place. I'm like, wow. She had a trash can in her garage, and when she walked in the house from the mailbox, she took any junk mail and put it in the trash right then. Maybe if it was like credit card things, maybe she tore it up into a million pieces because I have to put a lot of stuff in the shredder. She didn't have paper piles. She did all of these things. And then she started making her dinner in the afternoon. And honestly, anytime that I did well with making dinner as a grown-up, I did better when I was in college and in high school. But it was when at like 3:30 or 4, I thought maybe I should start making dinner now. Most of the time I didn't want to make dinner right then. I just got, I got the kids home from school and stuff like that. I wanted to enjoy my life. But if I thought, maybe you should start making dinner now, because that was more of a low pressure time, because it it wasn't dinner time. It was like, oh, I could do this and then I could do this. That was kind of being my personal assistant. If you do a little bit of this now, then later. Instead, I would wait, and then it's just like, I can't do that in time. Then I try to do stuff in a different way, and it wouldn't turn out very good. That was before I gave up on making dinner. But anyway, yeah. Anytime you can do yourself a favor, do it. Maybe you do have a personal assistant, and that's great too. And you already know what that's like, but there are probably ways that you can do that for yourself too. That you can help yourself not feel so pressured in the situation or not have as many things to do as you go. It's just like, people who used to iron. My mom still irons, but people who would do laundry and iron, then they'd put things in their closet that were perfectly ironed and they would have them to wear. I never really enjoyed ironing, and part of that would be because I'd pull something out and I think, well, I have to iron that if I want to wear it. I have to iron that. Then you're like, get out the ironing board. And I learned about the spray bottle where you can get things wet and just kind of flatten it out. And then I learned it doesn't matter if it's ironed. But still, do you ever use the curling iron sometimes? Or not the curling iron, the flat iron hair straightener? Sometimes I use that because I do like wearing linen if I ever wear something besides a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. Sometimes I like wearing linen, and it's kind of hopeless for that to ever stay ironed, but it looks really bad if the bottoms are super crinkly. So I'll just get a little bit wet and take the flat iron and put it across and try not to burn my clothes. So yeah, those are my fun little hints for today. But yeah, if you haven't read Stephen R. Covey's book, you don't have to read it. You can ask the internet to tell you what some of his best things were, or you can ask me and I'll tell you about more. But that's one of my favorites, is living in that quadrant, that second quadrant of important but not urgent. It is a lovely, lovely place to exist. And his other phrase that he had in one of his 7 steps was about sharpening the saw. And that was more about what you do for yourself, because if you were to cut down a tree, I've never tried to cut down a tree, but I did dig up an apple tree once and move it to the backyard, and it grew. It did. It was in a driveway, and I had to dig it up. It wasn't too big, but they're always bigger than they look. When you start digging and find the roots, they're always bigger underneath. But yeah, we needed to put a driveway on that side of the house because we had a guest house and we wanted to have a renter. And there was an apple tree there, so I dug it up and dragged it across the yard, replanted it, and it produced apples. One of my very few gardening success stories. Most of my gardening stories are survival of the fittest, because whatever I do, it doesn't work. But yeah. What was I talking about? Oh, a tree. I've never tried to cut down a tree, but I have used a saw before on limbs, on bushes and things that are growing the wrong direction. Maybe they're tree limbs. And I've actually never looked to see if the saw was sharp. I just find some handsaw in the garage. It's my husband. And you have to go, back and forth a million times to get it to cut. And if you have a sharp saw, it's going to be a lot easier than a dull one. And the idea with sharpening the saw is if you take time to sharpen the saw, it'll work better. And the same is true for ourselves with self-care. That's why everyone talks about self-care. It's partially for emotional health, mental health, but also if you want to be more effective in your life, if you want to be able to function, maybe that's the word I was looking for earlier. We know about executive dysfunction as part of ADHD, but we want to function with our brain that has executive dysfunction. And if you want to function, then if you are a sharper tool, if you've gotten enough sleep, if you manage your emotional health to some degree, you're able to get yourself to calm down when you're revved up. If you're in a panic mode and you're thinking, I made an episode last week about living in that place of fear and anxiety and panic. And I think it was because I kept thinking, this is urgent. You need to be doing this. You need to be doing this. But it wasn't just this. I had about 5 to 10 things that were going through my head of these are the urgent things to do. And so when someone says, just make a list and decide which is the most important. It doesn't speak to me a lot of the time because I have so many important things. Maybe not in in real life, but to me, they're that important. And as moms, women, we often have a lot of responsibilities, especially as moms. Everyone looks to us as, well, mom will do it. And whether we need to or not, if we've set that up in our lives, we take that on. And if you do have that more nurturing hostess-like aspect, whether you're really being the hostess when people come over or not, you may have that feeling of, I need to take care of this, I need to take care of that. And I have to keep telling myself, you don't have to do all this, but I kind of want to. I want to be on top of it. So, life, isn't it great? Thank you for listening to me. I hope it helps. And I have to tell you, I'm making progress on my website. It doesn't really look like it, but I finally figured out something that wasn't working for a long time. And more than anything, I'm just taking out a lot of things on the template that they put up there that I could fill in. I'm just like, I really just need to keep it simple right now. I have some free offerings right now, and I just want to have spots for my blog articles. My plan is I have my podcast episodes, and I have my yoga videos, and I want to bring them all in to my website so the people who do yoga with me can find the courses in there. I'm not taking people to all these different places. And then when I have blog episodes, with some of those, there's information that might be nice to have just in a bulletproof way, just to find the information quicker. That would be my blog article. So I started doing that before I switched my website, is trying to make, not every episode needs a blog article, but trying to get some of that information in written form. Because for me to remember something later, if something clicks with me, I like to see it in writing. Kind of like I talked about in the last episode. It's nice to have a visual picture of what that is. So it makes sense to your brain in a different way. So that's kind of where I am with that. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, thank you for being here, like I said before. And I appreciate, I have some new reviews on my podcast. Thank you for that. If you get a chance, I have to tell you, it is really hard to figure out how to give a review, at least on Apple Podcasts. I did it for a few people that I listened to their podcast a couple weeks ago and went to leave them a review. And it's crazy hard to even find out where to do it. Maybe not for everyone, but it was for me. So if you do leave me a review, I appreciate it because I know it's not easy to get there. But also tell a few friends about the podcast because I'd love to spread the word. Or if you want to watch me on YouTube, it is fun to make the videos. I'm getting more comfortable with it. But every time I come on, I think, oh my goodness, what's going on with this lighting? Why is it? It's hard to get past seeing yourself. And whatever. It's just what we look like, right? It's so crazy how we base so much in life about on how we look. And to a great degree, we can't help it. I mean, we can in some ways. We try to take care of ourselves. We can cut our hair, we can color it, we can do some things, but a lot of it is genetics and it's not really who we are. It is kind of crazy to think about. Are you somebody who likes to get curious and ponder? I am. I also want my website to be there so you can write to me or, I'd love to be in touch with people. And I have a newsletter, which you may not be able to find right now anyway, because I don't have the website set up, but I do send out a newsletter every week or so and send out tips, and I'm doing accountability groups. And that's been fun too. With exercise, it's helped me quite a bit. Not only with being consistent, but figuring out in the last year or two, my exercise routine has changed a lot. And I keep trying to push myself to do what I used to do time-wise. And I'm learning from going to the doctor, different tests and things like that, that actually that's not wise for my body. And that's a relief. But but just even focusing and getting the accountability to I'm going to do this is helping me see how my body's responding. And yeah, maybe I do need to dial it back. But yeah, we're all here for each other. So thank you for being here. I'll be back again next week. And I'm sure I'll think of something later that I'll wish I'd said. But until then, See you later. Bye.
I buttered my toast, spread on some grape jelly. I don't mean to boast, but I'm a chef and a good one. My grandma can't hear me. The breakfast is done. Heaven getting colder, ever older, so I run. Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause, no time for a pause. Rewind, I've run out of time to sing melodies and harmonies. I'm cut short, the silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.